The old WNBA media gets blasted. The old WNBA guard gets blasted for refusing to give Caitlin Clark any credit for this influx of money. This money they just received, $1.4 million max contracts going up year over year, would not have happened without Caitlin Clark. They would have accepted the damn first CBA that was offered to them for $800,000.
The WNBA just secured a historic CBA. Max contracts, record-breaking salaries. The kind of money players just 5 years ago could only dream about. Everyone's celebrating, patting themselves on the back, calling it a new era for the league. But there's someone, missing from all the thank you speeches. One name that everyone in that room knows changed everything, yet somehow never gets mentioned. Funny how that works. So here's the real question. Will WNBA veterans ever publicly give Caitlin Clark the credit for this financial surge, or is this silence just part of the game? Be honest. Drop your answer in the comments.
Listen, they refuse to give her credit. We had Chinny Agumake on ESPN, obviously, and they brought NECA on. We heard Chinny on before. Now NECA is up there, and there's just no credit to be given to Caitlin Clark, and it's absolutely ridiculous. They want it to be about them, how smart they are, and this and that. All of that stuff. It's not because Caitlin Clark is selling out every arena. It's not because she brought the ratings up. Oh no, it's because of all of us. And y'all played it unrivaled and nobody was watching.
Let's start with what actually happened. The WNBA just locked in a new collective bargaining agreement, and it's genuinely historic. The salary cap is rising to $7 million per team. Supermax contracts can now reach up to $1.4 million per year, and the average salary is hovering around $600,000. These are numbers the league has never seen before. 4 years, players grinded in the WNBA, earning only a fraction of what their talent truly deserved. Now, they're finally stepping into something that looks a lot closer to real money, and that's undeniably good news. No one is arguing against players getting paid. But here's where it gets interesting. When the cameras turned on and the conversation started about how this deal came together, the credit began flying everywhere, except in one direction. Players praised their own strategy at the negotiating table. Commentators highlighted the brilliance of collective bargaining tactics. And yet, one key piece of the story felt noticeably absent.
I'll say that I had a really great conversation with Chelsea Gray.
Okay.
She was talking to us as we were experiencing those pressures when, the dates came out and, conveniently other aspects of the negotiation were left out that had nothing to do with us. She was telling not just me, but all the other players that, hey, they have more to lose than we do. And at the end of the day, if we're not on the court, there is no business. And I really took those words to heart, and it was just one of those moments where I was so grateful to be able to have one-on-one conversations and ultimately kind of look over time the relationships that I've been able to build with different players for us to be able to do something this big, but also do it together. And we should not underestimate the intellect of these women.
NECA got on ESPN and talked about one-on-one conversations, relationships, and the intellect of these women. All of that, great, fine. But here's the kicker. Not one person, not one, looked into the camera and said the name Caitlin Clark in connection to why any of this money exists at the level it does today.
Damn credit. I know better. We know better. Trust me on that.
All right.
I know there is someone behind the scenes that you obviously wanted to give a lot of credit to, and that would be Terry Jackson. She's the current executive director of the Women's National Basketball Players Association. Can you explain that partnership a little bit and what she did behind the scenes to help you reach the ultimate goal?
Absolutely. Terry's been a part of my presidency, my entire presidency. I was on the executive committee when we brought her in. I was really led by some amazing leadership that brought her in, and she has I learned so much from her day by day, and she leads our phenomenal staff, Michael Goldshaw, Aaron Drake, Jane Appel, and it's just it's truly remarkable to be able to have someone who has not just that amount of wisdom, but also that amount of passion. What she does because she loves it and she believes in us, and she really breathes life into us through her work, and our staff does too. And so I'm just very grateful to.
And that right there, that's arguably the most impressive act of selective memory in professional sports history. Because here's the reality. Before Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, the league was not in a position to demand these kinds of numbers. Viewership wasn't at the level that forces television networks to write bigger checks. Arenas weren't selling out consistently enough to get sponsors' attention. The casual sports fan, someone who follows the NBA, the NFL, or March Madness, wasn't tuning in to WNBA games at the level that moves the financial needle. Then Caitlin Clark arrived. And everything changed. Ticket sales surged. Television ratings skyrocketed. Merchandise flew off shelves. Every arena she stepped into sold out. Fans who had never watched a WNBA game were suddenly setting reminders, checking box scores at work, and debating her performances. That is not a coincidence. That is the Caitlin Clark effect, and even those who refuse to acknowledge it know it's real. The first CBA offer on the table? Reportedly around $800,000 for a max contract. Players rejected it. They pushed for more, and they got it. Significantly more. But why were they able to push for more? Because the revenue numbers had changed. And why had the revenue numbers changed? Because of who was filling those arenas and driving those ratings. You cannot take the money and act like the person who generated it was irrelevant. That's not a good look. It's actually a terrible look if you pause and think about it. Nneka came on ESPN to talk about the deal, one-on-one conversations, relationships, intellect, and negotiations. Fine. Nobody's questioning the intelligence of WNBA players or the difficulty of these negotiations. But when you sit there talking about a historic moment in women's basketball and Caitlin Clark's name doesn't come up once in connection to why this moment was even possible. That's a choice. Not an oversight. A deliberate decision. It's the same decision made over and over by the same group of people, cashing checks that are larger because of exactly who they refuse to mention. Marcellus Way put it plainly, being Caitlin Clark is a thankless job. She changed the financial reality of an entire professional league, brought in fans nobody else could reach, sold out arenas, and drove television and sponsorship deals. And the response from many veterans and media figures? Radio silence. This isn't ancient history. This happened in real time. Everyone watched the viewership climb. Everyone watched the sellouts. There is no legitimate argument that her arrival didn't materially impact the league's financial trajectory. The only reason not to give credit is emotional, and apparently that cost is too high for some, even when the financial benefits sit in their own bank accounts. Why did Caitlin Clark move the needle so dramatically? It goes back to her college days, the logo bombs. Pulling up from distances that remind the average viewer of Steph Curry, not women's basketball players, and scoring 40 points in NCAA tournament games. She did it repeatedly on the biggest stage. That built an audience that followed her into the pros. And that audience brought their wallets, attention, and subscriptions with them. That audience is why this new CBA exists at the level it does. When the same veterans who ignored her in college now celebrate a historic CBA without mentioning Clark. The contrast is glaring. Pretending otherwise doesn't erase reality, it just makes the pretense look petty. And this refusal to acknowledge reality has a shelf life. Fans are watching. Social media is watching. Viewership numbers are public. Ticket sales are tracked. Every time a veteran celebrates the CBA without mentioning Clark, her audience notices, and they remember. What message does this send to the next generation of stars? Achieve the impossible, change the game, and still risk being minimized if the wrong people decide they don't like you. That is a genuinely bad lesson for a league trying to build momentum. Clark hasn't complained. She plays, delivers results, and lets the outcomes speak for themselves. But the silence of others costs them credibility every time they make it. The WNBA is in a better financial position than ever, and that is real. The players who fought for a better CBA deserve credit. No argument there. What is in question is whether those celebrating will acknowledge the full picture, why the money was even available. Based on every interview and media appearance in recent months, the answer is clear, no. And somehow, they're comfortable with that. At least until the audience, which Clark built, keeps score publicly. The money is real. The raises are real. The historic CBA is real. What is also real? Who made it all possible? And everyone in the league knows it, whether they say it or not. Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button and subscribe for more.